Welcome to the Dreams of Consciousness podcast. If you'd be so kind, would you mind introducing yourself?
Sonny Lombardozzi of Arise from Worms.
And Sonny, how would you describe the music of Arise from Worms?
Well, that's a good question. I don't know. It's extreme music. I wouldn't necessarily say it's death metal, even though there's death metal vocals on it. But yeah, it's just extreme as much as possible that I could come up with. You know, I mean, there's elements of classical to jazz to orchestra music to straightforward blast beats with flow. So I guess we just kind of took everything and threw it in a mixing bowl, and that's how it came out.
And can you tell the listeners who's with you on Arise from Worms?
Yeah, Rise for Worms. Steve Tucker, Morbid Angel, did vocals. Obviously, Flo from Cryptopsy did drums. Derek Strinian came halfway through the album. The album was already half, 3.5 songs. So he's X Dream Theater, Sons of Apollo. I mean, he's played with Steve Vai, Malmsteen. The list goes on and on and on. Kiss, I think, even. And then myself on guitars. So that's the whole lineup for the full length.
Sonny, can you tell myself and the listeners a little bit about your background? What were you doing before Arise from Worms?
I played with Incantation for probably 11 years. I did 5 full-length albums with them. Before joining Incantation, I was a music teacher that was about 11 years. And then before that, it was just hundreds of bands. It just didn't go anywhere. Anytime we'd have a lineup or something or get ready to go in the studio, it was just a train wreck. I mean, I'm sure a lot of people would would know how that goes. So
Yeah.
yeah, it was just years of you know people not showing up, or you get them in the studio, and everybody knows once you get in the studio, it's like putting a microscope underneath your playing. You know what I mean? And some people would walk out and just for years it was a disaster. Before technology came along, Pro Tools came along. I mean, now I can do anything I want and send it off, and Flo can record at his studio in Canada. I can record here in Erie, PA. Steve has his own little studio now. So technology has definitely saved me, man. you know.
You mentioned some of the jazz and classical influences you have on Arise from Worms. Uh, did you study music?
Yeah, I went to music school. There was a school here in my hometown at the time, so I took classical guitar and I took jazz guitar here. Um, so I definitely have a background in that, and it's not your traditional like dinner jazz. It was more a little more jazz fusion, like maybe heading towards Chick Corea, or a little more energy. Is this more into the more energy stuff? Not the traditional classical jazz stuff at all. But I used quite a bit of that on the opening track, the lyric video, Forgotten Kings. A lot of it on the instrumental, Nine Walls. So a lot of the scale work and stuff like that is definitely uh, jazz and orchestra type stuff. But a long time I studied. I was just a fanatic. Any information or anything at the time, I was just into it. I was just into it so much of learning. I'm just always learning. Somebody has something. Oh, cool. Show me that. Or something like that. So, and I still take lessons. I mean, I take piano lessons. I take violin lessons because I'm trying to approach the guitar from different angles, and that's what I tried to do with Nine Walls. I mean, I wrote that whole song on paper, in a book when I was on tour, teching for Morbid Angel as a guitar tech for them at the time, and most of those parts were actually written on violin. So and then I had to change it over to guitar. And then that's when I found out it was really wacky stuff going on, So, but it turned out cool. I think I'm very happy with it. There's nothing on the album where I just go, oh, geez, I wish we'd have tried this or tried that. There's nothing like that at all. I can listen to it front to back and just totally happy with it.
I would like to speak to you more about your songwriting process. When you say you were writing it out, were you writing tablatures? Do you usually start by writing tablatures?
Oh, it was all music notation. You know what
Okay.
I mean? And tab. Both. The notes and the thing, whatever I had in front of me at the time. Because sometimes I have an idea, and I want to have the book there. Or obviously a violin on tour, so I would grab a guitar or something like that, and then you know tab it all out like that. But I was so old school like that. A friend of mine made fun of me. He goes, they make this thing called Guitar Pro 8 now, and I was like, what? And he goes, you can put that on your iPad, man. It'd be a lot easier than carrying around a briefcase of papers, And I was like, oh well, blah blah, But yeah, I Forgotten Kings, the middle section, that was all written on violin. I tabbed that all out. Actually, on the Morbid Angel tour. Um, so yeah, it was just the ideas would pop in my head, so I would have to hurry up, write them down, for I would forget, obviously, and then once I got home, it was just piles of papers to the ceiling. You just had to start going through it and see what was good. And, some of it's rubbish and some of it we kept and some of it was really good. And, so I thought it turned out cool.
Why violin? Was violin your first instrument?
No, guitar was my first instrument. I started at 11 and then the violin is very close to the guitar as far as the notes and the scales and everything. So I had a little easier time converting to that instrument. And I mainly picked the violin up because I really dug the vibrato. I wanted to take that vibrato of a violin and those extra high notes and put it to the guitar. So that's why I started taking violin lessons, and that really worked out for me very, very well. Um, there's a part on Nine Walls where I'm just screaming the notes out with a Sustainiac pickup, and I was completely on violin, and I was like, well, God, how are we gonna do this, where it's screaming like a violin? So we ended up using the Sustainiac pickup in a guitar, and I didn't even know what a Sustainiac pickup was at the time, and Sweetwater recommended it to me to try it, so we did, and it worked out perfectly, and then obviously the piano is pretty close to guitar too, as far as like notes and everything, so it was just an approach to the guitar differently, because sometimes you start repeating the same patterns with the guitar, so if I started learning a riff on a violin and then when I put it to guitar it's completely different, type thing. But yeah, I mean, just because those three instruments kind of all go together is why I kind of did that.
You mentioned you started playing guitar at 11. Were you always a metal fan, or was it something that you gradually?
Yeah, no, metal fan from day one. Yeah, it was the whole neighborhood was rocking, man, at the time. I mean, everybody in my neighborhood played guitar, bass, or drums. Um, everybody used to stick their amps out the window and try and outdo each other from across the street. So it was a loud rocking neighborhood, man. It was a lot of fun. But my parents, the stereo blasted 24/7, man. My dad was a little older, so it'd be like Hendrix. My mom brought home Alice Cooper, "Love It to Death" by Alice Cooper. I remember playing the shit out of that
That's awesome.
um, record, and that's where it started, man. So I would definitely have to say the parents had a lot to do with the stereo, just every day, full blast. Because my mom was a hippie. She came from the hippie era, of the whole hippie camp movement and all that stuff in the late '60s and stuff. And my dad was a little older, so he was a greaser. So I got introduced to Chuck Berry, and that was always blasting all the time, and so it was a good time, you know.
Your music education, was it more on the performance side, or did you also learn a lot of theory and composition and stuff like that.
A lot of theory. Yeah, a lot of theory. And like I said earlier, I was just so into it, you know. Because when I first started, you're just learning your basic, you know, rock chords and how to build a chord and stuff, you know, your root and your fifth um and then the theory, because at the time, you know, I didn't know what seventh chords were or ninth arpeggios or any of that stuff, you know. So I just dove into it, you know, and had a good classical guitar teacher. And he was a mean sucker, man. He was on my ass. I mean, when I first came in there, I had my thumb over the neck. You know what I mean? Playing all 60s style, you know, and he was so strict, he'd whack my thumb with the ruler, you know, no, get it behind the neck. So you had to learn correctness, you know. So it was, he was a strict guy, but man, that I learned so much from that guy, you know. He
Yeah.
was a good dude, definitely a good dude.
We we talked about this a little bit in terms of how you write songs, how you compose songs. Are you mostly doing everything in Guitar Pro now?
No, I still don't use Guitar Pro at all. I use my Pro Tools completely old school style, like it was a 2-inch tape machine. Because I just recently converted to Pro Tools not too long ago because I had to. I had to upgrade because I couldn't communicate with anybody else because I was still running tape machines. You know what I mean? So I couldn't
Yeah.
send tracks off at all. So it took me a while just to get the basics down. But you know, as far as like bumping things to the grid or anything like that, I don't know anything about that. I would play it till it was correct, you know, just like you would on 2-inch tape. Um, cut, copy, and paste. I didn't really touch on it. You know what I mean? Um, I would just punch in like a normal tape machine, you know, type thing, you know. But no, I don't. I do it completely old school style, man. Just right out of the old scrolls of ancient samurai warriors, man. You know, I don't type arpeggios in, you know, to an arpeggio and oh that looks cool and move this around and move that around. I don't do any of that stuff. I just, like I said, I put it all out on paper. Sometimes it works, sometimes it doesn't work. You know, so I'll try something different. You know, so but it makes you a better player because you're trying these parts over and over and over again, and it might not work. So you might have to try something else there. So you'll rehearse the shit out of that, and then record. You know what I mean? Because you don't want to record it half, you know, while you're still playing it half ass. Because then all you're going to do is just sit there and punch yourself in all day long. You know what I mean? So I try to get a riff down, you know, massively, and then so I could focus on the energy of it and stuff like that, and try and capture the vibe that way instead of punching in like a billion times. That answered your question. I'm not sure. I forgot.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. I'm
Oh,
curious, how complete are the songs when you send them to Flo and the other guys? Are the song structures locked in or
yeah,
uh
everything's done. Yeah,
okay.
everything was done. It was a click track because obviously I had to learn how to send a click track. I didn't even know how to do that. You know, I had to get help on that. You know, I was like, well, I don't know nothing about sending a MIDI click track. You know, because the tempos are all over the place and the time signatures are all over the place. So I had to do a click track, and then especially with Flo, so he could pull it up and record his drums to the click and the guitar parts. And you know, I remember Flo getting a hold of me because, well, I don't know what to do on this one part here. It's just crazy. And I was like, just drum solo. Oh, okay. You know, so, and then, and once the drums were done, because Steve wanted drums so he could get the feel, you know what I mean, of the song. You know, he
Right,
didn't
yeah, yeah.
want to, he was like, dude, a click track and a guitar, I just can't get a good vibe going. So once the drums were done, we sent it down to him. And then when he was doing his vocal stuff, I started recording all the bass stuff because I ended up buying this 7-string bass, and most of the harmonies were done on that bass, you know, all the weird harmonies and everything. So that was a challenge to learn how to play with my fingers because some parts I wanted my fingers, some parts I wanted to pick, you know. So, and it took me maybe 3-4 months to get my fingers to go, you know, because I wasn't a bass player, but I knew what I wanted, you know what I mean. So, and at the time, I just couldn't find somebody that played bass that I wanted at the time. So, But yeah, all the stuff was done. When I sent it off, nothing was changed or edited later. Hey, this part needs to be longer. Nothing. I did let everybody do what the hell they wanted to do. You know what I mean? I mean, I did send some videos of me playing air drums for flow. You know what I mean? Of like, oh, hey, accents this here and do the drum roll here, with the scale, just to give him some ideas. So I just kind of played air drums to this video. So that helped him massively. Steve, I let him do what I want. Flo or Derek, I mean, um, he had his keyboards done the next day. That dude's fast, and he just had tons of ideas. It was just crazy, and but I let everybody do their own thing. I didn't whatever they sent me. I didn't delete or I used everything that they sent. That wasn't one thing where I was just like, I don't know, but I used everything.
So we you knew Steve from Morbid Angel, but how did Flo and Derek get involved with this?
Steve recommended Flo actually, because I was like, who are we gonna get for drums, and because I was pushing towards Derek Roddy, and he was just so busy doing his thing at the time, and then so Steve mentioned Flo. I got a hold of Flo. He says, "Let me hear some of the ideas." So I sent it to him. He goes, "Yep, I'm interested. Cool with that." And then Sherinian actually came into the picture. Was Ron Bumblefoot was doing a review. I sent him like a little section of Forgotten Kings, and he did a review of it, and just thought it was amazing and was just very unique and everything. He goes, "Wow, I really dig this." And so I got hooked up with Sherinian through Bumblefoot, and then sent Sherinian tracks. He thought there were some good stuff, so he goes, "Cool, I'm interested in it." And then that's how it all came together. So
I think my listeners, will be very familiar with Incantation, Morbid Angel, Cryptopsy. Uh, Shrinian is an interesting choice. When you reached out to Shrinian, was it because you were already writing uh, these more classical and maybe even like, prog influenced parts, and so you wanted somebody who could add that to this project?
no, there wasn't going to be any keyboard stuff on the album at all. It didn't even enter my mind, because we were doing some crazy harmonies on the guitar. When I got that 7-string bass, I mean, that opened up the doors for me like I never believed ever as far as harmonies, doing bass solos and, harmonizing the scales. Because a lot of guys go, "Where's the bass?" And I go, "It's doing the lead with the bass." They're both harmonizing it. Oh, I hear it now. Um, we want. I had an instrumental, Nine Walls at the time, and I says, well, maybe when I talked to Bumblefoot, the idea just kind of popped in there, and it was just originally just going to be a keyboard solo. You know what I mean? Just a small little keyboard solo or something harmonized with me. That's all. It wasn't going to be as extreme as it turned out to be. And then when he heard the material, he goes, "Man, I really hear a lot more stuff here." And I was just like, "All right, well, go for it." And then when he sent it back, I was like, "Wow, it just really took us to a new level of more than I ever thought. So, but I'm glad that happened. There's some crazy keyboard stuff on there that I just, was cool. And it's probably um, heaviest thing he's ever done, you
Yeah,
know.
yeah.
Um, because normally he doesn't do this style of music, so it's definitely heavy for him. Even when some of the Symphony X guys heard it, they're like, "Wow, that's really heavy for Derek," but it sounds great.
Yeah.
They says it just really gives it this unique sound. It's like you just took all these different styles of, like we said earlier, just threw them in a bowl, man, mixed it up, and it came out. Type things. So, but every one of them though, they all said this. "Do you ever write anything in 4/4?" And I was like, I didn't realize it at the time, and flow is even that. Everything's in 7 or 9 or 3, and it's just like, and they're like, everything is. And I was like, I don't know. It was just the way I was writing and how I heard it in my head, and it just came out. So I mean, I didn't really have an influence from any other bands of like, hey, we need to sound like those dudes, or we need to sound like this. It was the first time I just played. I just went in, hit record, I played, and what I felt and came out is what came out. I didn't say, oh, I got to sound like Steve Vai on this part, or I got to sound like Meshuggah on this part, or hey, we need a Morbid Angel part. I didn't do that at all with this. I just went for it.
Do you think your tendency to write in unorthodox time signatures comes from the fact that you were playing the tape for a long time? Like, because I think when you play to a grid, when you play to a click track, or when you play when you write using a DAW, like the tendency is everything ends up either in 4/4 or some other, usually 4/4, right? Like that 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 that,
Yeah,
that.
yeah.
Yeah,
In can was all 4 and 6. You know what I mean? Everything was. If it wasn't 4/4, it was 6.
6/8,
You
yeah.
know, yeah. So everything they did with that, or the tempos would be the same all the way through. Maybe once in a while it would slow down to a doom part or something. You know, um, with this, I didn't realize I had that type of style until I worked with a local studio drummer. Because for years, people I'd work with drummers and they're like, "Oh, dude, you're one short or you're one too late," blah blah. And like, "Oh no, this is how I feel the riff." I didn't know how to explain it to him at the time until I met the studio drummer, and then I actually took drum theory. I didn't take drum lessons. I just took the theory of it. Like, how do I communicate with these guys without saying this doesn't feel right? Yeah, I didn't want to do that. You know what I mean? I
Yeah.
wanted to say, oh, it's in 9/8 or it's 3/4. And when I learned how to do that, man, the headaches was just gone because drummers that did their homework, they knew. you,
Yeah.
you know. So it was just so much easier to do that. But I didn't realize it was all over the place like that until it was this crazy instrumental drummer here that was really into like Watchtower and everything, and he was like, man, it's just everything's 3, 7, and 9, 11. He was like, it's great.
Yeah.
I didn't even know at the time.
Yeah.
I just said, well, this is how I feel.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, those are
So then when
those are the best kind of collaborators, right? Like the guys who, when they hear something unorthodox or, not the norm, their tendency isn't, oh, we need to make this sound like everything else. We need to make this 4/4. The tendency is like, fuck yeah, let's do something like really, really out there and unique.
Yeah, I mean, when we were doing Sect of Our Divinity, there was a part on there. I heard this thing, and then I was like, it was 4/4, and I was like, let's add one more note, make it 5, and it sounded so cool. And they're like, no, it's going to be too much for our fans, man. They can't. It's going to be too much for them. And I was like, man, it's just a couple bars. You know what I mean? It was just a couple bars, and they wouldn't do it. So we end up racing it and recording it 4/4 with and it just every time I hear that on that album, it's just like I know what was there, so it's like hard to even listen to it, so but a lot of guys won't do that, because they want to get on stage and not have to think or count or anything like that. But when you rehearse that much, even with the style of music, it's second nature.
Yeah.
When you put the time in, so
Yeah. So the first Arise from Worms album is called A Bleeding Tree, Hanging Self-Destruction, and it will be
yes,
released by Church Road Records on the 10th of July.
yep,
You talked
yep.
about some of the previous projects you'd been in. Do you feel like this album is a statement for you?
Um, it's definitely people can hear what I really play like. Incantation was more of a cover band for me. Very, very little was accepted. I mean, I did 90% of the recording on that band. I did almost all the recording for those albums. I was just better in the studio. So when you got the chops to do the studio stuff, you do most of the recording. It's with any band. Um, but yeah, Rise is just people can hear what I'm really into. You know, uh, in Can there was just no creativity there for me at all, and it just came to a boiling point of like, okay, if I'm gonna be being poor or playing death metal, I might as well want to. Can I write something?
Yeah.
That's how I started to feel. At least like to have a riff, or something, But
John handles all the songwriting in that band.
him and Chuck, they bounce ideas off each other. But they used to send me these ideas and everything. They're like, "Hey, we got this idea here. Make it killer." And I'm like, "Huh?" And they're like, "Yeah, wait, here's the idea, but make it good." Oh, okay. So I would take the idea, and just shape it to get ready to record. You know, I mean, Sect of Divinity, for 3.5 months, I couldn't get John on the phone to go into the studio to say, "Hey, I got a couple idea parts here," or whatever. Um, so Kyle called me up a week before I was supposed to come out to a studio to record. He goes, "Hey, you're ready?" I go, "Well, I don't know." I was like, "Nobody's answered their phone for like 3.5 months to go over the tab to make sure all the tab parts are right." Well, what do you mean? You know what I mean? So technically, I went at that Sect of Divinity album is probably the first incantation album that's actually in key, because not that I changed the riffs, I just kind of moved them, and
Yeah,
I just moved notes around. You know what I mean? So a lot of that album is written in like E harmonic minor, and they don't even know it. So, but we were halfway done. Me and Kyle were halfway done tracking that album before John even showed up. So
okay. Uh, with the Rise from Worms, I mean, we spoke about how this isn't, or at least in your mind, this isn't necessarily a death metal album because it has so many other influences. Uh, but do you feel like the audience for this will mostly be death metal people, or do you feel that it'll, also appeal to like people who are into prog or even like maybe more adventurous jazz fans?
um, here's the thing with that. The A lot of the death metal guys, are, wow, this is a lot for me to handle. You know what I mean? Um, but Steve's voice is there and everything, so to them it's we kind of just call it extreme music. It's extreme music, man.
Right.
Um, it's a label on it, all these different things, but um, the prog guys that heard it, oh, we love the music, but we don't like the vocals because they don't listen. They don't.
That's
They don't
always the
listen
issue,
to those
right?
type.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Yeah, they don't listen to those type of vocals. You know what I mean? But they like Steve's voice because they can hear almost every word he's saying on this album.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? They're like, oh, I can hear the words, so they're kind of into it. The jazz guys that have heard it in my hometown, they just come straight out and say, wow, this is really cool stuff. You really took it to a next level,
That's awesome.
um, type thing. I mean, even some of the orchestra guys that I work with here, the conductor, he goes, well, let me hear some of that stuff. So I let him hear it, and he goes, wow. He goes, I'm not into that type of, he'd call it growling music.
Yeah.
He goes, but he goes, let me hear it again. And he goes, if I'm asking to hear it again, something, because I don't follow that genre.
Yeah.
I mean, I haven't had anything negative from any of those people that followed me all those years. They're all loving it. They're all digging it. Um, they all say it's something fresh for them to hear. Some of them never heard guitar playing like that because they don't follow that shred era, type thing. So it's kind of new for them, and I think it's kind of new for everybody. You know what I mean? Because it's just like I said, the orchestra guys, they definitely don't listen to those type of vocals, or those type of drum beats. You know what I mean? I mean they didn't know what a blast beat was, you know. So everybody got exposed to a lot of different genres there really quick hearing that. My one friend, he says, well, come over, take a listen to it. So he's sitting there and he goes, dude, this is like science or something. He goes, I'm just used to standing there like a, yeah, he goes, I'm just used to standing there with my Budweiser dude at Ozfest going, woo. he goes, this is like Star Trek or something. I was like, but he even said, can I hear it again though? And I was like, oh yeah, sure, dude. And he goes, wow, same thing, man. He goes, it's making me think like I'm in science class or something. But it was just funny he said that.
Sorry, I just wanted to backtrack a little bit as far as Steve's contributions. Did Steve come up with most of the lyrics for this?
I started the lyrics. He asked, "Hey, do you got some lyrics?" I says, "Dude, I just have bits and pieces here and there, and a lot of it is just small lines, poetry. If I heard something, I'd hurry up, write it down." And he goes, "Anything you got, dude, write it down because it might trigger something into you know the song." So I kept sending him all these ideas. So me and him, not calibrated, but joined together and worked on the lyrics. I sent him all the ideas I had. And he was like, called me up. He goes, "Dude, did you take a poetry class or something?" I go, "No, it's just shit in my head. And he goes, "Well, if some of this stuff's in your head, you got some problems." But yeah, he just because I didn't know how to put it out vocally. I never written vocal lines or anything. I just would just here's a guitar part, dude, sing over it. I didn't know. So he would move things around and add sentences and pushed it together. So we both kind of put that all together like that, which it was cool. It was my first time, um, doing that, which was cool, you know.
So you mentioned that everyone handled their parts remotely. Do you have your own studio? Is that where you're sitting right now?
Yes. Yep. Got my own studio. Yeah. Yeah. I used to record full bands in here, and then I just got away from it. Too many people were just burning me for cash, So I was just too nice of a person. "Oh man, I'll get you later. Get you later." "Oh, okay, cool. It's all right, bro. And next thing you know, wait a minute, studio's got to make money, you know. But yeah, so I just record guitars here, and that's all I do here is record guitars. I don't do any vocal stuff here or nothing anymore. And then Flo has his studio up there um, that he works with Cryptopsy in, and that's where his guitar player Chris recorded his drums there, type thing. And then he, once everything was done, we sent it. Flo wanted to use him to mix the album, so that's who we used. It was Chris Donaldson, I think is his last name. But we wanted I just used a very, a 5150 on the left side, and then a custom AMM amp out of Chicago on the right side. 157 on each cabinet, totally old school. I didn't reamp anything like that or anything like that. So it's very, you can probably hear it. It's very, very raw guitar tracks. I mean, you can tell it's an amp. But that's all I did. And then the leads and everything, obviously, same setup, but just did the leads with it. So, but nothing like, six mics on a cabinet or four or three. I just threw a 57 on it like you would do live, and away I went. So,
Did Chris Donaldson from Cryptopsy also master the album, or did you send it to someone else to get mastered?
yes. No,
Okay.
he mastered it. Yeah. Yeah. We did everything. He had all the drum tracks. So we sent him, the bass tracks, guitar tracks, all that stuff, you know. But I just basically told him what I wanted. I says, don't EQ the guitars, don't do nothing with the guitars, just bring the faders up. That's what I was looking for, just a raw recording, and I didn't want anything overproduced or anything like that. So he was like, as long as you're happy with it, then we're good. So I was, and I would send mixes to Steve and get his opinion, and he would suggest things here and there. I mean, we did have a problem mixing the keyboards because I don't think he was used to mixing those type of keyboards with this kind of music. So we had to send him some examples of some separation of guitar and keyboards and stuff. I mean, I was even sending him examples of like old Rainbow and Deep Purple stuff.
Okay.
So because Derek did some serious old school Deep Purple keyboards in some
Yeah,
parts,
yeah,
that big
yeah,
board,
yeah,
and I'm
yeah,
like,
yeah.
whoa, dude, so like Purple just came out of the album. But so we did send him some samples like that, and then once he heard it all fell together. So, but And then we sent it off to Derek to make sure all his keyboard parts were where he wanted it, and he said he was happy with it. So um, we sent it off.
With all the different influences that you bring into this album and with Derek's contributions, but also, Flo and Steve, so well known in the space that they're known in. What did you want the finished sound of this album to be? What did you want Chris Donaldson to bring to the overall experience of the album?
Um, oh God, that's a tough question. Yeah, I don't know how to answer that actually.
I mean, to me, like I understand a little bit what you mean when you say like this isn't a, a 100% death metal album. This does feel like, and you mentioned Rainbow and Purple and all these throwback influences. This does feel like a little bit of in terms of the sound, in terms of the production, a little bit of a
hmm
throwback to like, the era of metal where like keyboards and guitar playing were intertwined. Do you know what I mean? Like it does
Yes,
feel like
yes,
classic in that sense.
yes, exactly. Yeah, yeah. I mean, we were going for that. You know what I mean? With the influences and stuff like that. Because I was referencing. I didn't know how else to talk to him. Uh, how to get the keyboards to come out right? Because sometimes we would get a mix. The keyboards would be buried. And like, well, I think
Right.
I hear it, or sometimes it'd be so loud, you know. So, actually, Steve was like, dude, send him some old school Rainbow and some Deep Purple, dude. He goes, let him listen to that. And so we sent that to him, and then when we started getting the mixes back, we're like, okay, now we're in the ballpark. Now we just got to work on levels, you know. But yeah, we were definitely going for that older sound like that. If that's answering your question, I wasn't sure, but
Yeah, yeah. I mean, I think I think maybe you used the word clarity. Was clarity having each instrument have its own like separation between the guitars and the bass and the
yeah, it
keyboards? Was that very
definitely.
important to you?
Yes, extremely, extremely. And I mean, actually, a friend of mine that's a producer over in Europe, he was like, dude, every single guitar note you can hear on that album. He goes, nothing is buried. The harmonies pop, everything pops, the rhythm pops, the bass harmonies are popping, the keyboards are cut right through. He goes, everything is very clear. And I think the reason why it did come out like that is because we simplified it. You know what I mean? We didn't do, like I said before, six microphones on the guitar cabinet alone. You know what I mean? Because the more
I
and more and
gotcha.
more
Yeah.
you do, the more noisy it gets. You know what I mean? And the guitar sound that I had in here, I was like, dude, I just leave it alone. Don't add EQ. Don't nothing like that. Just bring up the fader. Because when you start adding EQs, you're basically adding noise. Your mixes, no matter what, start getting noisy. Because you're adding a frequency to it. But yeah, I think it's just because we left it raw like that it came out clear like that. I mean, does it sound like that to you on your end, or
It
I
sounded
mean,
very
I've heard
clear.
that.
Yeah. The production
Oh,
is
okay, I've heard
amazing.
this. I've heard the songs a billion times, so sometimes I'm like, oh, I can't listen no more.
Yeah.
you know,
And especially
but
like, I appreciate, having seen Flow a number of times. I appreciate, when an engineer is able to capture, all the nuances of a drum performance, hear all the cymbal hits and all that kind of stuff.
yeah, I think. I mean, I can hear his little splashes and everything on there.
Yeah.
I mean, nothing's getting lost towards just a rumble of noise. I think some death metal bands they get noisy, and people are like, oh man, did you hear that cool little thing I did? No, it just got lost in the mix, man. I was like, I could see you doing it. You know what
Yeah,
I
yeah,
mean? I
yeah.
could totally see you doing something cool and being a musician. I know it was cool, but as far as it coming out, it just didn't come out of the mix. But a lot it happens to a lot of bands. I mean, playing live's hard, man. You're dealing with a lot of wall of sound, man. Especially if people can't control their volume at a decent, respectable level to where everybody can hear.
Yeah.
They can get noisy really fast. But
Do you know if Steve double tracks his vocals, or was everything single track for this?
He did double track. Yeah, he wanted to try some new stuff. That's why he uh, did his own studio because he was like, I want to really experiment on this album. Is that all right? And I was like, I'll do whatever you want to do. If you want to experiment, experiment. So he double tracked a lot of stuff. He did harmonies that he's never done before. He said he just really experimented on his own of stuff. So and I thought it came out cool.
Yeah,
It definitely came out really cool. It sounded powerful and um, it just I thought added some good stuff to the songs, to where I'm listening and going, oh, that was really cool there. You know what I mean? Because sometimes if you have a death metal vocalist and it's the same thing all the way from beginning to end. You know what I mean? There's no
yeah,
old schoolness to it. You know what I mean? Of like, oh, what was that? That was cool, or oh, that part there was cool. Sometimes they just kind of um, do the pig growl all the way through it. You know what I mean? And it's just like, it's cool, it's brutal, and I listen to that kind of music. Don't get me wrong, but sometimes it gets lost for me. But yeah, he did a lot of cool stuff. I was very happy with what he did.
so have the four of you been in a room together yet?
No, no, we have not. Because when we did the EP, that was the pandemic. You know, um, so that put a hurting on it. And then this one here, the EP did so well for us, which I didn't really know it did that well. Um, hey, let's do some more songs. I was like, oh, okay. Well, I do have some more stuff. They just weren't complete. And it was just going to be an instrumental album at first. And then Steve heard some of the tracks, so he's like, "No, I hear stuff there." I was like, "Okay, cool." So, no, none of us have physically been in the room together because Flo's in Canada. He's about 8 hours for me. Tucker's south of me about 4 or 5 hours. Obviously, Derek's out in California. Um, but me and Steve, last time we talked, we're gonna do some small touring with it and everything.
Oh, that's great.
Um, Yeah, so it's just it kind of took off more than what everybody thought, because it's different for Steve, it's different for Flo, and it's definitely different for Derek. So I think everybody was just kind of like, "Ooh, this is really different," you know. So I think maybe they're all a little nervous, a little bit with it, but well, it's like a disease, man. It just spreads. Which it did, more than I thought, I didn't know, honestly, so
Is as far as the live shows go, is there anything concrete that you want to announce, or is it still all in development?
no,
And
we're just bringing everything to the table. You know what I
okay,
mean? Everything's getting brought to the table and it's just like, hey, what can we do? What do we want to do? Obviously we're all a little older. I talked with Steve, hey, we got to make it, comfortable. I don't know if we could. Everybody's older now that don't know if they could sit in a van for 8 hours.
right, yeah,
you know, so it'd have to be. How can we make this work? And that's what we're working on. So um, but it'll happen. You know, I'll just keep pushing to make it happen.
that's awesome.
Yeah.
Yeah, it would be cool if you guys got to play like festivals and stuff like that. Um,
Yeah, I mean, management has brought it up, and Steve, talked about it. I wanted to do a little more touring than festivals. Steve only wants to go out maybe a few weeks, because he has other projects going on and stuff like that. Um, so I wanted to go out instrumentally as well if Steve didn't want to do the run. You know what I mean? Because I kind of had, oh, if Marty Friedman can do it and Animals as Leaders is doing, I want to do it. You know what I mean? So, I wanted to go out too as an instrumental thing and do it that way too. So, just to keep active.
yeah. So by the time people hear this episode, A Bleeding Tree, Hanging Self-Destruction will be out through Church Road Records. Sonny, please tell everyone how to get the album. What's the best way to order it?
Best way to order it is through Church Road Records, actually, vinyl and CDs. Obviously, it's on all platforms for streaming. Um, you can get merch through my personal website, www.sonnylombardozzi.com. All the Arise from Worms merch is on there. Time this comes out, I'll have albums on there too and CDs. So everything is through my personal website. Um, so they can just find me right through there. I mean, obviously, I'm on Instagram and Facebook as well, but the band and everything is just completely underneath my name. So,
Do you want to tell the record collectors out there about the vinyl version?
yeah, the vinyl version will have an extra song on it, um, and only the hard copies have the extra instrumental song on it. And it's just it's guitar, violin, cellos, um, a classical piece that was redone. Um, I just thought it would be cool to put it on the hard copies with that, But all the cool artwork, and some extra artwork inside the insert that I didn't think was going to get done. The artist at the last minute was like, "I got it done," and I was like, "Oh my god, thank God!" Because we had to submit everything. We were at our deadline,
Yeah.
So he got it done, and then we're like, "Oh, we got to change." So the record company's like, "What? What do you mean?" So I was like, "Well, we got, this extra dragon section needs to go in there." Oh, okay, we're, so it was very tight, but it was cool. So we got the extra artwork on the hard copies and stuff like that, which was just a dream come true for me because, man, it took that guy maybe 8 or 9 months to hand draw. All the artwork is hand drawn. It's nothing's computer or anything like that. That guy did, uh, man, over a year's worth of artwork with all the artwork with that. So, and it came out really cool. The artwork on the cover, where they see the warrior standing out over the Great Wall of China. I actually stood there and looked out. So he actually got all that from my memory. You know what
Okay.
I mean? Of my
Yeah.
memory there and got all that. And then we added the dragon coming through the sky there, the guitar in there, and it's broken. There's a reason why it's broken. That was basically, some bros in the music industry that I thought were my best friends that obviously weren't my best friends that I thought, and you know, they were dear to me, and the guitar's dear to me too. So it snapped in half. That makes sense to you, you
Yeah.
know. So that's why that's in there. So yeah, everything has a meaning on there. I mean, even the extra artwork in the center is all certain things or things that I seen when I was overseas. So
Do you want to mention the name of the artist in case people want to check out his work?
I can't pronounce his name, but if you go to sonnylombardozzi.com, his website's on my website. Um, I just know him as Chris, but I can't pronounce his last name at all.
Okay.
But all his information will be in the album. It's all on my website. Direct links right to him. All his logo stuff's on all my merch, all the T-shirts. There's no way you can't find this guy. You know what I mean? Because most people take like the logo off of the artwork and everything. I left it on there on everything, the album, CDs, everything. So he'll be very easy to find.
Okay.
But great guy. He was great to work with. Captured everything. Tons of ideas. I mean, he sent ideas that we didn't even use. T-shirt designs we didn't even get a chance to use and everything. So just a great dude.
Yeah.
But it was actually I wanted to work with the artist that did the In-Can albums. And what I was describing, he's like, "I'm just not the artist for you. Try this guy." And I says, "Oh, okay." So I went and checked out his stuff, and he was doing artwork with Vikings and all this stuff. And I was like, "Well, hey, I kind of want this, you know, Asian thing going on there." He goes, "Yeah, yeah, I'm into it." So we ended up working with him, and it worked out great, man.
That's awesome.
But yep, sonnylombardozzi.com, and he's right in there.
Do you, is there anything else you're working on that you want people to know about or want them to check out?
The only thing that I'm doing right now is doing some orchestra work. We just finished mixing and recording the first song. And actually, these songs are actually a Rise from Worm songs that we never got to finish because everybody's schedule. So it's actually really cool to hear these with a full 100-piece orchestra. It's pretty cool, you know. So it's they're even adding things that I would even dream of doing. But that's what I'm doing right now. Going over the songs to get ready for a tour. So I'm gearing up, ready to go. So I don't want to sit around at all, and I don't want to put out the album and go, it's a cool album, and then not do anything. So I'm pushing pretty hard to like, okay, let's rock with this. So getting a good response, good reviews, and a lot of hits. You know, merch sold more than what I thought. So it's good. Things are really good. Very happy.
So people watching this on YouTube will notice that you're wearing a shirt that says Indonesian martial arts. Do you
Yep.
practice silat?
Yeah, sea lot for over 20 years now. Yeah,
I don't know
I
if you knew
am.
this, but I'm based in Malaysia.
Oh, really?
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Okay, cool.
There's a silat class, silat program around the corner for me.
Oh, very cool. Yeah,
Yeah.
very cool. Yeah, I entered that school. Oh man, 25 years ago maybe, and it changed my life, dude. I recommend it to anybody. Um,
You know who else practices silat who was also in incantation at one point is Paul from Profanatica. I don't know if you knew that.
oh, I didn't know that. Oh
Yeah,
wait,
yeah,
maybe Chuck told me that.
yeah.
I remember him bringing something up about that. I can't remember. But yeah, dude, it changed my life, dude. It definitely makes you more focused and you know stuff like that. I never thought in a million years I'd be full guru. I just didn't even enter my mind. But it definitely keeps me focused in the studio. It's a good balance. It's great. It's definitely. I recommend any sort of martial arts to anybody out there. To give you some type of balance and exercise that brain and stuff like that. So. It's good stuff. It's very good stuff. Got to be careful though with your hands,
Yeah,
because man, you
yeah,
get sometimes, man, I got to tap a little sooner when somebody puts me in an arm bar. So, oh, don't do that, man. I got to record tonight.
yeah.
So, but yeah, man, if you have a chance to go, go. It's great stuff. It's really good stuff.
Sonny, it was really nice speaking with you.
Oh,
Is
you too, buddy. Absolutely, yeah.
is there anything else you want to say about the album or the band or anything else? Anything you want the
No, that's
listeners to
about
know?
it. Just I hope people dig it and blast the shit out of it, and we'll get out there and play this stuff, man. Because I'm Jones in the go. So that's about it, really. But
Excellent.
anybody out there, man, send me messages or whatever. I reply to everybody. Anybody that sends me a message through Messenger or Instagram, I reply to everybody. Send me your songs, send me your demos. I listen to everything. Send me your guitar playing. I listen to people's shred stuff too all the time. Anything. I love chatting with musicians, man. Even you want to talk pedals, talk amplifiers, man. I'm your guy. If you want to talk politics, I'm not your guy. Or any other negative shit in the world. But yeah, send it in, man. And anything on gear, man. I'll talk. I'll talk for days, months about gear. I just anything with that.
Excellent. Thanks so much, Sonny.
Absolutely, bud. Yeah, definitely.